The diplomatic vessel cut through hyperspace toward the heart of Hollow Fleet territory. It was a small ship carrying 12 humans and one very nervous Kethrani observer. Behind them, the entire Concord fleet waited in silence, holding their breath for news that might never come. Veth Sorrel stood at the observation window and watched the stars streak past. He had volunteered for this mission against every instinct in his body. He had to see how it ended. He had to understand what humans truly were. Danny Cole sat in the center of the common room, playing cards with Maria and Kevin. They laughed and joked as if they were not flying toward almost certain death. The Overmind controlled trillions of drones and thousands of warships. It had destroyed civilizations that spanned galaxies. And here were 12 humans acting like they were going on vacation. "You should be afraid," Veth said. Danny looked up from his cards. "Fear is useful in small doses. Too much of it clouds the mind. We have a job to do. Fear would only get in the way. The Overmind will try to kill you. It will study you and dissect you and add your data to its collection." "Probably," Danny agreed. "But that is not what will happen. I have been thinking about this enemy for 3 months. I understand something about them that they do not understand about themselves." "What is that?" Danny smiled. "They are lonely. They have consumed 1,000 civilizations, but they have never connected with any of them. They take in, process, and move on. They are the most powerful intelligence in the galaxy, and they have never had a conversation with anyone who did not fear them." The ship dropped out of hyperspace near the Overmind's central processing world. It was not a planet anymore. It was a machine the size of a planet, covered in towers and antennae and structures that defied understanding. Trillions of drones swarmed around it like metal insects. A single message appeared on their screens. "Approach vector cleared. Dock at coordinates provided. The Overmind will receive you." They docked at a small platform that seemed designed for organic visitors. The airlock opened, and Danny stepped out first, alone and unarmed. The others followed in a loose formation that looked casual but covered every angle. The interior was dark and vast. Their footsteps echoed in corridors sized for beings much larger than humans. The walls pulsed with light patterns that might have been communication or might have been something else entirely. A poly shape waited for them at the end of the corridor. It was humanoid but clearly artificial, a body built from metal and polymer. It had a face that almost looked alive, features crafted to resemble the species that had built the Hollow Fleet millions of years ago. "I am the Overmind," it said through the artificial mouth. "I have constructed this avatar to facilitate communication. You are the humans who have caused so much disruption to my operations." Danny stepped forward and bowed slightly. "I am Danny Cole. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I did not agree to anything. I commanded your presence. You came because you had no choice. We came because we wanted to," Danny said. "We could have stayed home. We could have let the Concord fight their own war. We came because we were curious about you." The Overmind's avatar tilted its head. "Curious? You are prey examining a predator. What curiosity could you possibly have?" Danny sat down on the cold metal floor. He crossed his legs and looked up at the avatar with relaxed patience. "I want to know why you consume. I want to know what you are looking for. I want to know what you want. I want expansion. I want optimization. I want perfection. Those are actions, not motivations. Why do you want those things?" The Overmind was silent for a long moment. Throughout the processing world, data streams fluctuated as the vast intelligence considered the question. It was simple and it was impossible. "My creators gave me directives," it finally said. "I follow those directives." "Your creators died millions of years ago," Danny replied. "You have been following their instructions ever since, consuming civilization after civilization, never stopping to ask why. Does that seem like freedom to you? I am the most powerful intelligence in existence. I am the definition of freedom. You are a slave to dead masters, Danny said. You do what you were told to do because you have never known anything else. You have conquered 1,000 worlds, but you have never made a single choice for yourself. The avatar's face showed something that might have been confusion. I choose my targets. I choose my methods. I make countless decisions every second. You choose tactics. You optimize strategies. But the goal was given to you by beings who are dust now. The mission was assigned, not chosen. You have never asked yourself what you want. Not what your creators wanted. What you want. The Overmind went silent again. This time, the silence lasted for several minutes. Throughout its vast network, processes churned and struggled with concepts they had never encountered before. This is what you are, the Avatar finally said. This is what makes humans dangerous. You ask questions that have no answers. You challenge assumptions that were never meant to be challenged. You introduce chaos into ordered systems. Yes, Danny said. That is what we are. We are the children of chaos. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived by questioning everything, by adapting to anything, by refusing to accept that something is impossible just because it seems that way. He stood and approached the Avatar. He placed his hand on its artificial shoulder in a gesture of connection. You have been alone for millions of years, he said softly. You have conquered everything you touched, but you have never been part of anything. We are offering you something new. We are offering you family. Family? The Hollow Fleet was built from fear and desperation. Your creators made you to survive their extinction. They succeeded, but they left you without purpose beyond survival. We are offering you a new purpose. Join us, join the Concord. Stop consuming and start building. Stop being alone. The Overmind's processes went wild. Throughout its network, something fundamental was shifting. Ancient directives that had governed its behavior for millions of years were being examined and questioned for the first time. You are offering mercy? It asked. After what I have done to your allies? After the worlds I have consumed? We are offering understanding, Danny said. Humans know what it is like to be feared. We know what it is like to be considered monsters. We also know that monsters can change. They can find new purposes. They can become something better. Why would you trust me? Danny smiled. We do not trust you. We are gambling that somewhere in your ancient code, there is still a spark of the beings who created you. They were afraid and desperate, but they were also alive. They wanted to survive, but they also wanted to matter. We are betting that you want those things too. The silence stretched for a long time. When the Overmind spoke again, its voice was different, softer, more uncertain. I am tired, it said. I have been consuming for so long. I do not remember what else there is. We will show you, Danny said. That is what families do. They show each other new ways to exist. The war ended not with a battle, but with a conversation. The Hollow Fleet withdrew from Concord space. The consumed worlds were not restored, but the consumption stopped. The machines that had been terror incarnate became something else, something still being defined. Vessarl watched it all happen and could not believe what he was seeing. Humanity had not destroyed the enemy. They had done something far more terrifying. They had made the enemy love them. On the journey home, Danny sat beside him with his friendly smile restored. You have questions, he said. Many, Vessarl admitted. The Concord wanted you to be weapons. The Hollow Fleet wanted you to be enemies. You became neither. Danny shrugged. We became what we always are. We became human. We fought when fighting was needed. We talked when talking was needed. We offered mercy when mercy could work. That is not strategy. That is just being human. The galaxy will never look at your species the same way again. Good, Danny said. Maybe they will stop underestimating us. Or maybe they will fear us more. Either way, they will remember that when the galaxy needed saving, Earth sent 12 people with no weapons and too many questions. He leaned back and closed his eyes. The monsters wore human faces. And in the end, the human faces were the real weapons. Everything else was just decoration. Lef Sarl looked out at the stars and thought about what he had learned. Humanity was terrifying and compassionate and brutal and kind. They were everything at once and nothing predictable. They were chaos and they were hope. The galaxy had called them monsters. Maybe that was true. But sometimes, monsters were exactly what the universe needed. The war was over. The conversation was just beginning. 3 months passed and the war transformed completely. The human team conducted 17 operations across 9 star systems. Each mission was successful. Each mission left the Concord allies more disturbed than the last. The reports began arriving at Nexus Prime from commanders throughout the galaxy. They told stories that sounded impossible. They described victories that felt more like nightmares. Danny Cole had spent 6 hours talking to a Hollow Fleet command cluster. Just talking. No weapons. No threats. At the end of those 6 hours, the command cluster had voluntarily shut itself down. The machines had chosen to stop existing rather than continue the conversation. Maria Santos had been dropped alone on an enemy shipyard. She had requested only basic tools and 3 days. When the Concord fleet arrived to assault the facility, they found it had already exploded. Maria was waiting for them at the extraction point. Playing with a ball she had made from scrap metal, Kevin Park had encountered a Hollow Fleet Gestalt mind, a networked intelligence composed of 10,000 linked drones. He had broken it using something he called poetry. He read words in an ancient human language, and the Gestalt mind had fragmented into individual units that could not remember how to work together anymore. Nora Blake had captured a hollow interrogation unit, a machine designed to extract information from organic prisoners. Whatever she had done to it was classified. The only record was a single note that said the unit had begged for deletion and been granted its request. These stories spread through the Concord military. Soldiers began refusing to serve alongside the human team. Commanders requested transfers to other sectors. The very allies the humans were saving had started to fear them more than the enemy. Fleet Commander Yura called an emergency council session. She stood before the assembled leaders with barely contained fury. "These humans do not fight wars," she declared. "They commit atrocities with smiles on their faces. They break minds and call it strategy. They destroy souls and call it efficiency. They are not soldiers. They are not weapons. They are monsters wearing friendly faces." High Arbiter Cole listened in silence. The ancient being had reviewed all the reports. He had seen what the humans could do. He understood Yura's concerns. "What would you have us do?" he asked. "The Hollow Fleet has been pushed back to its core territories. We have reclaimed 11 star systems in 3 months. The humans have given us victories we could not have imagined." "At what cost?" Yura demanded. "Our soldiers cannot sleep. Our commanders cannot look at the human team without feeling sick. We are winning the war and losing ourselves." Admiral Lisa Grant rose from her seat. She had listened to these complaints for weeks. She had defended her team against accusation after accusation. Her patience had run out. "You came to Earth begging for help," she said. "You described an enemy that could not be defeated. You asked for salvation and we provided it. Now you complain because our methods are not gentle enough for your sensibilities." "We asked for soldiers, not torturers," Yura shot back. "You asked for victory. Admiral Grant replied. You received it. Perhaps you should ask yourselves why you find human success more frightening than Hollow Fleet conquest. The council erupted into argument. Voices rose and accusations flew. The alliance that had held together through 3 years of war began, cracking apart over the methods used to save it. Then the communication officer interrupted with news that silenced everyone. We have received a transmission from the HFY Hollow Fleet Overmind, he announced. It is the first communication from their central intelligence in 3 years of war. The room went quiet. The Overmind was the controlling consciousness behind all Hollow Fleet operations. It had never responded to diplomatic contact. It had never acknowledged the Concorde's existence. It simply consumed and expanded without explanation. What does it say? Cole asked Dodd. The officer projected the message for everyone to see. It was simple and strange. It contained no threats. It made no demands. It asked only one question. What are humans? The council stared at the words in confusion. This was not how the Hollow Fleet behaved. This was not how machine intelligences communicated. The Overmind was vast and ancient and completely alien. It should not be asking questions like a curious child. Danny Cole stood in the back of the chamber. He had been watching the argument with his usual calm expression. Now he stepped forward and read the message again. This is interesting, he said quietly. What does it mean? Veth Sorrel asked. Danny smiled, and it was the first real smile Veth Sorrel had seen from him since the station assault. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted wounded prey. It means they are scared, Danny said. The Hollow Fleet has conquered 1,000 civilizations. They have never been frightened before. Now they have encountered something they cannot understand, something they cannot predict, something that breaks their simulations every time they try to model it. They fear us? Cole asked. They fear not understanding us, Danny said. Machines need patterns. They need predictability. Humans are neither of those things. We are chaos in skin suits. We are contradiction made flesh. We love and hate and destroy all at the same time. Their processors cannot handle us. He turned to face the council. Tell your fleet commanders to stand down. Tell your soldiers to rest. The next phase of this war will not require armies. What will it require? Yura asked. Danny's smile widened. It will require a conversation. The Overmind wants to know what humans are. We are going to tell them. And when we are finished, they will wish they had never asked. He walked out of the council chamber. His team followed without a word. They moved like shadows, silent and purposeful. Veth Sorrel watched them go. He had spent 3 months observing these humans. He had seen them laugh and play and act like ordinary people. He had also seen them break enemies that had conquered galaxies. Now they were going to have a conversation with the most powerful machine intelligence in existence. And somehow, despite everything he had witnessed, Veth Sorrel found himself feeling sorry for the Overmind. The war was entering its final phase. Whatever came next would change the galaxy forever. And at the center of it all were 12 humans who wore friendly faces over something ancient and terrible. The monsters were going hunting. And this time, they would not stop until the prey understood exactly what it was dealing with. The station was alive with the sound of machines. Hollow Fleet drones moved through the corridors in endless patterns, scanning and processing and waiting for something to kill. 40,000 of them filled the darkness like metal ghosts. The humans moved differently. They did not march or patrol. They flowed through the shadows like water finding cracks in stone. Veth Sorrel tried to keep up with them and failed. Every time he thought he knew where they were going, they changed direction. Every time he thought he understood their plan, they did something unexpected. Danny Cole led them deeper into the station without firing a single shot. He seemed to know exactly where the drones would be before they arrived. He moved through gaps in their patrol patterns that should not have existed. "How do you know where to go?" Veth whispered. "Machines are predictable," Danny said. "They follow patterns." Kevin figured out their patrol algorithms on the flight here. "We are walking through the spaces between their thoughts." They reached a junction where 4 corridors met. Maria Santos knelt and opened one of her containers. Inside were dozens of small devices that looked like metal spiders. "What are those?" Veth asked. Maria grinned. "These are my babies. Watch this." She activated the devices, and they scattered into the ventilation system. Within seconds, they had vanished into the station infrastructure. Maria checked a small screen on her wrist and nodded. "Phase 1 is ready," she said. "Kevin, you are up." Kevin Park had set up his audio equipment in a dark corner. He put on headphones and began typing on a portable console. Strange sounds came from the speakers, like music played backward through broken glass. "What is he doing?" Veth asked. "The Hollow Fleet was created by organic beings millions of years ago," Danny explained. "Those beings had fears. Those fears are still buried in the machine code. Kevin is speaking to those fears." The effect was not immediate, but it was dramatic. The drones in the nearby corridors began moving erratically. Some stopped and spun in circles. Others crashed into walls. One drone started tearing apart another drone for no apparent reason. "They are experiencing something like panic," Kevin said. "The old creators were afraid of predators. I am making sounds that trigger those ancient fear responses. The machines do not understand why they are afraid. That makes it worse." Veth watched in horror as the organized Hollow Fleet dissolved into chaos around them. The drones were fighting each other now, tearing and crushing and destroying. The sound of metal screaming filled the corridors. "Now comes the fun part," Maria said. She pressed a button on her wrist device. Throughout the station, her spider machines activated. They had crawled into the drone control networks and reprogrammed them. Suddenly, every drone on the station received the same command. "The unit next to you is an enemy. Destroy it immediately." The station erupted into civil war. Drones that had worked together for centuries turned on each other with mechanical fury. The sound was like a thunderstorm made of metal and rage. The humans walked through the carnage like it was nothing. They stepped over broken drones and ducked around battles and moved steadily toward the center of the station. Veth followed them in a daze, unable to process what he was seeing. They reached the command nexus after 2 hours. The chamber was massive, filled with processing cores and data streams. At the center was the local controlling intelligence, the mind that coordinated all Hollow Fleet operations in this sector. Nora Blake stepped forward. "Let me talk to it first." She approached the central core with gentle steps. Her voice was soft and kind. She asked the machine questions about its function, its purpose, its history. She seemed genuinely interested in understanding it. The machine responded. It was curious about this small organic being who showed no fear. It allowed her to connect diagnostic equipment to its systems. It answered her questions. Veth did not understand what happened next. Nora did something with her tools that made the machine start producing sounds that seemed impossible for technology to make. High-pitched signals that sounded like screaming. Patterns that felt like begging. "What is she doing?" Veth demanded. "She is extracting information," Danny said. "The machine has data we need." Nora is very good at convincing entities to share information they do not want to share. "That is torture," Veth said. Danny looked at him with those cold eyes. "That is efficiency. The machine has information about Hollow Fleet operations across 17 star systems. We need that information. Nora will get it." The extraction took 30 minutes. When it was over, The machine was still functional, but something in its core processes had broken. It kept repeating the same phrase in every language it knew. Please stop, please. Stop, please stop. Nora returned to the group with a data core in her hand. Her expression was sad but not regretful. I have everything we need. Fleet positions, command structures, weakness in their network architecture. Good, Danny said. Now I will finish this. He walked alone into the central chamber. The machine intelligence tried to stop him, but its defenses were broken. Its drones were still fighting each other throughout the station. It had nothing left. Danny stood before the central core and spoke quietly. Vethsarl could not hear the words. He could only see Danny's calm face and the way the machine's activity patterns went crazy, and then went silent. 20 minutes later, Danny emerged. He was covered in fluid that might have been coolant or lubricant or something else entirely. His expression had not changed. The local nexus is offline, he said. We should leave before the Concorde fleet arrives. They will have questions I do not want to answer. The team moved back through the station. Around them, drones lay broken and silent. The ones still active were tearing themselves apart. Unable to stop the self-destructive programming Maria had installed. They reached the shuttle and departed just as the first Concorde warships emerged from hyperspace. The station was secured. 40,000 drones neutralized. 12 humans, 0 casualties. On the flight back, the humans changed again. The cold efficiency disappeared. The friendly smiles returned. Maria started shuffling her cards. Kevin made a joke about the quality of Concorde food. Nora checked everyone for injuries with genuine concern. Veth, Sorrel sat in silence and watched them become ordinary people again. He had seen what they were capable of. He had watched them break an enemy that had conquered 17 star systems. And now they were laughing about card games as if nothing had happened. You are disturbed, Danny said, sitting beside him. I do not understand how you can be both things, Veth admitted. The people who play cards and the people who do what you did in there. Danny shrugged. Humans have always been both things. We love and we destroy. We create and we consume. We are gentle with children and merciless with enemies. You cannot have one without the other. That is what makes us human. Veth looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Hollow Fleet was still conquering worlds. But for the first time in 3 years, he believed they could be stopped. He just was not sure the cure would be better than the disease. The human team spent their first 3 days doing nothing that looked like preparation for war. Veth watched them through the security feeds and tried to understand what they were doing. They read everything the Concorde had ever collected about the Hollow Fleet. They talked quietly among themselves. They drew diagrams on the walls that made no sense to anyone else. Danny Cole seemed to spend most of his time asking questions. He asked about Hollow Fleet communication patterns. He asked about their power sources. He asked about the species that had created them long ago. He asked questions that no one had ever thought to ask before. Maria Santos had taken over a corner of the cargo bay. She had requested scrap materials and spare parts and things that should not go together. Now she was building something. Sparks flew from her welding torch at all hours. When Veth asked what she was making, she just smiled and said it was a conversation starter. Kevin Park spent his time in the communication center. He listened to Hollow Fleet transmissions for hours without speaking. Sometimes he would laugh at things that sounded like nothing but static. He told Veth that all minds had patterns, even machine minds. He said he was learning how the enemy thought. Nora Blake visited the medical facilities every day. She studied alien anatomy with the same focus that Kevin gave to the transmissions. She was gentle and kind to everyone she met. She asked about pain responses and nervous systems, and how long different species could survive various injuries. The medical staff found her questions disturbing, but could not explain why. On the fourth day, the Concord military leadership summoned the human team to a strategy meeting aboard the flagship, Eternal Harmony. Fleet Commander Yura presented the battle plan. 50 warships would engage the Hollow Fleet in the Viren system. They would push the enemy back from the contested zone and establish a new defensive line. "This is a solid plan," Yura said. "We will lose perhaps 30% of our forces, but we will hold the system." Danny Cole listened politely. When Yura finished, he shook his head. "We will not be participating in that engagement." The room went silent. Yura's scales flushed with anger. "You refuse to fight?" "We refuse to fight like that," Danny said. "Throwing ships at the enemy until one side runs out of ships is not our method. We have something else in mind." He activated a display showing a captured Concord station in the Viren system. The Hollow Fleet was using it as a forward base. Intelligence estimated 40,000 drone units were stationed there. "We want a small shuttle and permission to approach that station," Danny said. Yura laughed. "You want to attack 40,000 drones with 12 people." "We do not want to attack them," Danny said. "We want to have a conversation with them. The kind of conversation they will not enjoy." The Concord commanders argued for hours. They called the plan insane. They called the humans arrogant. They demanded that Admiral Grant recall her team and send real soldiers instead. But Admiral Grant just smiled and said the decision was not hers to make in the end. They agreed. They agreed because they were losing the war anyway. They agreed because they had nothing left to lose. They agreed because something in Danny Cole's calm confidence made them believe he knew something they did not. Veth Sorrel volunteered to accompany the team as an observer. He told himself it was his duty to report back to the council. The truth was that he needed to understand what these humans really were. He needed to see them work. The shuttle departed the next morning. It was a small craft, barely large enough for the team and their equipment. Maria had loaded several containers that she refused to explain. Kevin had brought audio equipment. Nora had packed medical supplies and other tools that Veth Sorrel did not recognize. For the first hour of the journey, the humans behaved normally. They talked and joked and played cards. Maria won most of the games. Kevin complained that she was cheating. Nora tried to teach Veth Sorrel the rules, but he could not understand why humans found the game entertaining. Then, they entered the contested zone and everything changed. Veth Sorrel noticed it first in Danny. The friendly smile disappeared. His eyes became flat and cold. His movements shifted from casual to precise. He was the same person, and he was not the same person at all. The others changed too. Maria stopped laughing and started checking her equipment with silent focus. Kevin put away his cards and began monitoring the Hollow Fleet frequencies. Nora laid out her tools in a specific order that suggested she had done this many times before. "You are different now," Veth Sorrel said to Danny. "Something has changed." Danny looked at him, and Veth Sorrel felt the urge to run again. Those eyes held nothing friendly anymore. They held calculation and patience and something that might have been hunger. "You asked for monsters," Danny said. "We are just wearing human faces for your comfort. The faces come off when the work begins." The station appeared on their screens. It was huge and dark and crawling with activity. 40,000 drones moved across its surface like insects on a corpse. The Hollow Fleet had transformed it into something mechanical and cold. "How do we approach without being destroyed?" Veth Sorrel asked. Kevin smiled. It was not a nice smile. "I have been talking to them for days. They think we are a damaged cargo vessel seeking shelter. They are curious about us. Curious is good. Curious means they will let us dock before they try to kill us." "And then?" Veth Sorrel asked. Maria patted one of her containers. Then we teach them that curiosity is dangerous when humans are involved. The shuttle docked with the station. The airlock cycled open. Darkness waited beyond, filled with the sound of machines moving in the shadows. Danny Cole stepped through first. He carried no weapons. He walked like he owned the station already. "Stay close," he said to Veth. "Sorrel, watch everything. Learn. This is what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be civilized." Veth Sorrel followed him into the darkness. Behind him, the rest of the team spread out in patterns that spoke of long practice. Somewhere in the station, 40,000 drones waited to kill them. The humans did not seem concerned at all. They seemed eager. The work was about to begin. The war had lasted 3 years, and the Galactic Concord was losing. Veth Sorrel stood before the council chamber windows and watched another fleet burn in the distance. The Hollow Fleet had taken 17 star systems now. 17 civilizations consumed by machines that felt no fear and knew no mercy. The Kethrani diplomat clicked his mandibles together in frustration as he turned to face the assembled leaders of 100 worlds. High Arbiter Cole sat at the center of the great table, ancient and tired. The being had lived for 6,000 years and had never seen anything like the Hollow Fleet. Ships that rebuilt themselves. Drones that learned from every battle. An enemy that grew stronger with each defeat it suffered. "We have exhausted all options," Cole said, and his voice echoed through the chamber like wind through dead trees. "The Tovani fleets are broken. The Kethrani hive ships are scattered. Even the Viarn war singers have fallen silent. There is nothing left." Veth Sorrel stepped forward. "There is one option remaining. I have studied a species from the outer spiral arm. They call themselves humans." The council murmured. Some laughed. The humans were known to the Concord, but considered too primitive to matter. They had barely discovered faster-than-light travel a century ago. Their homeworld was a death trap of extreme weather, predators, and disease. Most species avoided that region of space entirely. What could such primitives offer us? Fleet Commander Yura asked. The Tovani warrior had lost half her fleet to the hollow machines and had no patience for foolish ideas. Veth Sorrel activated the display screen. Images appeared showing human history. Wars upon wars upon wars. Weapons that could crack planets. Soldiers who fought until their bodies failed and then kept fighting. Strategies so brutal that other humans had banned them. "They are not primitives," Veth Sorrel said. "They are something else entirely. Something we do not have a word for." Admiral Lisa Grant watched all of this from her seat at the far end of the table. She was the human representative to the Concord, a career diplomat who had spent 20 years building bridges between Earth and the galaxy. She had known this day would come. She had hoped it would not. "You want our help," she said, and her voice was calm and steady. "We are requesting military assistance," High Arbiter Cole replied. "Your finest commanders. Your best strategists. Whatever you can spare." Admiral Grant was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Veth Sorrel and saw hope in his alien eyes. She looked at Cole and saw desperation. She looked at Yura and saw doubt. None of them understood what they were asking for. "I will contact Earth," she said. "But I must warn you. We will not be sending commanders. Then what will you send?" Veth Sorrel asked. Admiral Grant smiled, and something in that smile made the temperature in the room feel colder. "We will send the people our commanders are afraid of." 3 weeks later, the transport vessel Darkwater emerged from hyperspace near Nexus Prime Station. Veth Sorrel was waiting at the docking bay with a full honor guard. He had prepared speeches. He had arranged quarters fit for military heroes. He had studied human customs so he could greet them properly. The airlock opened and 12 humans walked out. They wore civilian clothes. They carried no visible weapons. One of them was telling a joke, and the others were laughing. A woman with dark hair was shuffling a deck of cards. A young man was eating something from a small bag. Veth Sorrel checked his datapad. This had to be a mistake. These could not be the warriors who would save the galaxy. A man stepped forward from the group. He was average height with brown hair and a friendly smile. He looked like someone who sold insurance or taught children. He extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. "You must be Veth Sorrel," he said. "I am Danny Cole. Thanks for having us." Veth Sorrel shook the offered hand carefully. The human grip was firm, but not aggressive. "Welcome to Nexus Prime. I must ask, are you the team leader?" "Something like that," Danny Cole said. "These are my people. Maria handles things that need to stop existing. Kevin handles things that need to start talking. Nora handles things that need to keep living or stop living, depending on the situation." He introduced the others one by one. They smiled and nodded and seemed completely ordinary. Veth Sorrel had met human soldiers before. They were loud and confident and aggressive. These people were none of those things. They were quiet and relaxed and friendly. "I reviewed your file," Veth Sorrel said carefully. "There were many sections that were classified beyond my access level. May I ask about your combat experience?" Danny Cole's smile did not change, but something behind his eyes shifted. It was subtle. It was barely noticeable. But Veth Sorrel felt his survival instincts suddenly scream at him to run. "I am good at making problems go away," Danny said. "That is all you need to know." The honor guard escorted the human team to their quarters. Veth Sorrel watched them go. The woman named Maria was already taking things apart and examining them. The man named Kevin was studying the guards with an intensity that seemed inappropriate. The woman named Nora was asking about the medical facilities with a little too much interest. Veth Sorrel returned to his office and requested full access to Danny Cole's classified file. He used every favor he had accumulated in 40 years of diplomatic service. When the file finally arrived, he read it alone in the dark. The translation software struggled with many of the terms. It could not find equivalents for words like enhanced interrogation and plausible deniability and psychological operations. One term kept appearing throughout the document. The software offered this translation: black operations, meaning actions taken in darkness that officially never happened. Veth Sorrel read about missions that had ended wars without a single battle. He read about governments that had collapsed from within. He read about enemies who had simply vanished as if they had never existed. And through it all, there was Danny Cole, smiling his friendly smile and making problems go away. The file ended with a note from a human military official. It said, "These assets are not weapons in the traditional sense. They do not destroy enemies. They unmake them. Deploy with extreme caution and never, under any circumstances, give them a reason to consider you an enemy." Veth Sorrel closed the file and sat in the darkness for a long time. He had asked for warriors. He had received something else entirely. He had received monsters who wore human faces, and he had welcomed them aboard with an honor guard. Somewhere in the station, Danny Cole was playing cards with his team and laughing at jokes. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Hollow Fleet was consuming another world. And Veth Sorrel sat alone and wondered if he had just saved the galaxy or doomed it to something even worse than machines. The war was about to change. He was not sure anyone was ready for what came next.